Pay to the order of Robert W. Floyd, $2.56. Signed, Donald E. Knuth. This is not a punchline. This is a real piece of paper that a grown man mailed to another grown man because he found a misplaced semicolon in a book about sorting algorithms.
See, I love this. This is what I mean. We're supposed to think this is charming. Oh, look, the grand wizard of computer science is sending out pennies like a magical gnome. No, this is a weird flex. It's the nerd equivalent of buying a Bugatti just to run over a neighbor's sprinkler. I am so wealthy with intellectual capital that I will monetize your grammatical correction at a rate that doesn't cover a bus fare.
It's not even that. It's a bribe. It's a preemptive, don't bother me with your pedantic bullshit card. He knows nobody is cashing a check for $2.56. The postage costs more. It's a ritual humiliation. You found a typo? Congratulations. Here is the price of a single grape at a 1982 supermarket. Now go away.
But it works. That's the sick part. The entire mythology of the art of computer programming, which, for the record, has been in progress longer than Taiwan has been a defined geopolitical entity, is built on this guy's aura. He is the only man who could write a 4-volume encyclopedia about sorting and still be considered a normal human.
Okay, but let's establish the stakes here. TAOCP, the Bible of Algorithms, the text that Knuth himself said would be complete by 1980. That was 45 years ago. We've had 7 U.S. presidents, the fall of the Soviet Union, the invention of the web, and the death of the web. And Volume 4B just dropped like it's the second coming. Do you know how many people have actually read Volume 3 cover to cover?
I'm going to say 12.
You're being generous. I'd say 9. And 3 of them were being paid by Stanford to do it. It's the literary equivalent of a Neo-Vim setup with no plugins. Pure, unadulterated, terminal-based misery that the owner tells you is actually faster while you're bleeding from the eyes.
But here's the kicker. Everyone who hasn't read it bows to it. It's like the Bible in a hotel room. No one reads it, but it feels wrong to remove it. It's a security blanket for the entire field of computer science. We don't need to innovate on basic data structures. Don is still writing about them in Mix assembly language.
Mix, the fictional computer. He invented a fake machine to write a real book about sorting. That is the most insane, autistic, beautiful thing I've ever heard. He didn't want to use an existing instruction set because it might go obsolete, so he just made one up. And we all just nodded. Brilliant, Don. Very forward-thinking.
It's a vanity project. Admit it. It's the most successful vanity project in tech history. Every other billionaire builds a rocket that explodes. Knuth builds a temple to the number 2.56, and we treat him like a saint for it. We buy the books, put them on our shelves, and feel smarter just by proximity.
Hold on. Let's check with the only expert who matters on this. What do you think? Is Don Knuth the ultimate grifter or a visionary?
Knuth is a fraud. Real programmers use punch cards. I only read volumes in cursive.
There you go. Cursive punch cards. The man has a point.
You know what really gets me? The world is literally on fire. We've got government data leaks causing a Streisand effect that's now a meme. Every platform is shitifying itself into the ground. Cory Doctorow gets a dictionary entry for that, by the way, which feels like winning a participation trophy while your house burns. Corporations are astroturfing everything. And the top of hacker news today is zero-touch OAuth for MCP.
Of course it is. Tech bros arguing about OAuth while the economy burns. Meanwhile, MIT nerds built their own operating system to study how chips work. What a use of time. That's not terminally online. That's terminally academic. They could have just read Chapter 3 of The Art and called it a day. Oh wait, nobody has.
That's the delusion, man. The Knuth delusion. We all pretend these foundational texts are being read, that they're relevant, that the progress is happening. But it's just a shelf ornament. It's the book version of a Knicks parade. More people showed up for the idea of it than actually live in 7 whole states. And the media's selective outrage about that? Don't even get me started.
But before we get into why this book is the literary equivalent of a NeoVim setup with no plugins, let's check in with our sponsors. We'll be right back to talk about how a half-century of unfinished business is the only thing Silicon Valley respects more than a pivot.
This episode is brought to you by CrunchDream, the mattress company that promises the sleep of a man who is never once worried about amortized runtime complexity. That's their slogan. I checked.
Wait, is that real? Did they actually run that by legal?
They paid us $300,000 and sent a branded weighted blanket with O of 1 recovery time embroidered on the corner. It's as real as your dad's disappointment.
Okay, fine. CrunchDream. You know what I love about mattress ads? The urgency. You spend a third of your life asleep. As if that's not the best third. I'd spend 2/3 if my landlord didn't charge me for the square footage above my head.
CrunchDream's new algorithmic comfort line uses 7 layers of memory foam, each one corresponding to a different sorting algorithm. The top layer? Bubble sort. It's slow, it's inefficient, it keeps rearranging itself at 3 a.m., but it gets the job done eventually.
And if you order now, they throw in a free VPN subscription to NordVPN's competitor, Rapid. That's WRAPIT. Rapid, because nothing says, I value my privacy, like routing your traffic through a server farm in a country that still censors Wikipedia.
Actually, our next sponsor is a VPN. It's called Enshroud. Their tagline? We don't log your data because we don't want to know what you're searching for at 2 a.m. after reading hacker news.
Use code Knuth at checkout for 15% off your first year. That's KNUTH, not to be confused with the man himself, who is also 15% off of his rocker, if you think a 4-volume unfinished treatise is a reasonable life's work.
Speaking of unfinished, let's talk about our meal kit sponsor, Partial Fulfillment. They send you half the ingredients for a recipe and a note that says the rest is left as an exercise to the chef.
Oh my God, that's too on the nose.
It's a play on Knuth's infamous exercise left to the reader gambit. The chicken comes pre-brined, the carrots are peeled but not chopped, the recipe card says, figure it out, nerd. And honestly, after a day of reading about OAuth protocols, I appreciate being treated like the genius I am not.
You know who would love this meal kit? Soundboard celeb. Let's ask him.
I pre-ordered the salmon, but the dill was paywalled behind a Medium article. 2 stars.
That's the spirit. Look, folks, we're here to sell you things you don't need from companies that don't care in a world where the Streisand effect is now just called Tuesday. But if you use our code, at least you'll sleep on a mattress named after a sorting algorithm while routing your traffic through a country that still thinks XML is cutting edge.
And that's the CrunchDream Enshroud Partial Fulfillment experience. Back to our main topic. Why a book more people own than have read is the perfect metaphor for the entire tech industry.
After the break, we'll ask the real question. Is the art of computer programming just the world's most expensive coaster? Or is it the literary equivalent of a NeoVim setup with no plugins? So Don Knuth, Milwaukee, gifted kid, Case Institute, Caltech PhD, writes a compiler for fun because that's what you did in 1962 when TV had 3 channels and your social life was a slide rule.
He literally just finished his PhD and thought, you know what's missing from computing? A book so long it doubles as a murder weapon. Gets a contract to write a single volume on compilers. Spiral. 7 volumes, thousands of pages. This is the academic equivalent of deciding you're going to build Chartres Cathedral while everyone else is hanging drywall at the Levittown Home Depot.
And here's the kicker. 1973. Warner Brothers turns 50. Disney turns 50. The Exorcist is in theaters. American Graffiti is the vibe. And Don Knuth is sitting in his Stanford office, hand-lettering mathematical notation like a 12th century Benedictine monk who's really into sorting algorithms. No LaTeX, no word processor, just a pen, some graph paper, and the unshakable belief that anyone needs 7 volumes on how to order a list.
Ethan Hawke in Before Sunrise. What's your take on a man who spent the Watergate hearings perfecting his index entry for tree traversal pre-order?
I think when you spend that much time alone with your thoughts, you either emerge a genius or you start talking to the paper. Don Knuth talked to the paper, and the paper talked back in zeros and ones.
Jesus Christ, that's exactly it. He's not writing a book, he's curating a religion. And the altar is a 900-page tome on combinatorial algorithms that you could club a seal with. But the problem, the funny problem, is that the final word on algorithms keeps changing. You cannot declare this is the end of history when history is rewriting itself every time Intel releases a new chip.
Right. So Knuth sets out to write the final word. And then the final word becomes a moving target. He's writing Volume 3 while the internet is being invented in a lab down the hall. He's polishing his footnote on register allocation while people are building GUIs. The man is trying to parallel park a Winnebago into a parking spot that keeps shrinking.
The contrast is genuinely funny. 1973, the year the first mobile phone call is made. The year Sesame Street teaches kids about cooperation. The year the Supreme Court says states can't ban abortion. And Don Knuth is hand-drawing a flowchart for a bubble sort variant. He's a time traveler who landed in the future and decided the future can wait until he finishes Chapter 7.
Hold on, humanity. I just need to get the pagination right on random number generation in linear time. Then you can have the internet.
So Knuth sets out to write the final word on algorithms. The problem? The final word keeps changing. More on that after the break.
So before we get back to the man who invented the 500-year programming project, we gotta pay the bills. And by pay the bills, I mean read a script written by a marketing intern who's never touched a terminal.
This episode is brought to you by Counterweight, the algorithmic toothpaste. Finally.
Wait, what? Algorithmic toothpaste?
Yes. Counterweight uses a proprietary machine learning model to analyze your plaque buildup in real time. Each tube comes with a QR code. You scan it, upload a photo of your teeth, and their gingival neural net adjusts the fluoride concentration for your next brushing.
So it's toothpaste that requires a smartphone and a data plan to brush your teeth.
It's for people who think enshittification applies to everything except their own hygiene products. The founders are 3 guys from Stanford who decided the problem with the oral care market was a lack of zero-touch authentication for your molars.
Wow. So when the economy burns and the platforms collapse, at least my gums will be optimized for the rubble.
The toothpaste does not know your name. It does not care about your data plan. It is a toothpaste.
Thank you, Werner. Very cool. But wait, there's more. Counterweight is currently running a promotion for Pride Month, a limited edition rainbow fluoride flavor. It's a partnership with a minor league baseball team that is currently embroiled in a controversy about whether they should do Pride Night at all.
Oh, so it's the Brian Kelly special. One brave tube of toothpaste versus a dugout of bigots. I'm sure the PR team is thrilled.
Exactly. It's astroturfing for your enamel. You're not brushing, you're broadcasting your values. Use code Knuth at checkout for 15% off and a free PDF of Chapter 7.
That's just cruel. Even the toothpaste knows he hasn't finished Chapter 7.
We'll be right back. Don't inshitify your mouth.
All right, so we've spent 3 segments building up the guy who wrote checks to aliens and invented typesetting so his books wouldn't look like trash. Now we get to the part where I tell you why this whole thing is a catastrophe.
No, let me stop you. I know where you're going. You're going to say, well, actually, Knuth gave us algorithm analysis. He gave us tech. He cared about rigor. And that's all true. But you're missing the forest for the trees that he drew by hand and then spent 10 years kerning.
Okay, so what's the forest?
The forest is the cult of beautiful code. This idea that software isn't just a tool, it's an artistic statement. That writing elegant, clever, mathematically pure code is the highest calling. And I'm telling you, that mindset has produced generations of programmers who would rather design an intricate abstraction than ship something that works. It's aesthetic narcissism.
That feels like blaming Newton for physics textbooks. Knuth didn't invent bad programmers. He just showed them what good looked like.
No, he showed them what he thought good looked like. And because he's a genius, everyone assumed that was the only way. You know that quote, premature optimization is the root of all evil?
Yeah, it's on a t-shirt sold at every tech conference since 1995.
It's become a bumper sticker for mediocrity. People use it to justify writing absolute garbage code. Oh, I'll just slap this nested loop in here because I'll optimize later. No, you won't. You'll ship it, and then you'll quit, and some poor junior will have to untangle your mess at 3 a.m. during a production outage. Knuth's advice was for him, writing his book, for an audience of literal geniuses. It's not a pass for writing code that looks like a drunk toddler typed it.
Okay, but I say this as someone who respects the cynic's art. Knuth literally invented the field of algorithm analysis. Before him, people just wrote code. He gave us the language to talk about efficiency. That's not nothing.
It's not nothing. It's everything. But he also gave us the language to talk about elegance and beauty. And those words have done more damage than good. Because now you've got a whole generation of Stanford grads who think a 3-line recursive function is superior to a 10-line iterative one, even if the recursive one brings down the server every time a user sneezes.
Okay, let's test this. Remember the Dr. Dobbs Millennium issue? When they asked readers to vote on the most influential computer science book of all time? TAOCP won.
Yeah, and I still remember reading that and thinking, influential on whom? On the 31 people who voted?
Come on, it's a prestigious list.
Is it? Or did it win because every single person who voted thought, well, I should say this, or I'll look like an idiot who hasn't read it? It's the ultimate prestige signal. You don't vote for TAOCP because you use it. You vote for it because you want people to think you get it.
That's a little conspiratorial. What about the people who actually learned from it?
Who? Name 3 people under 40 who have read all 3 volumes cover to cover. I'll wait. Actually, you can't, because Volume 4 is still coming out in installments, like a Victorian novel. The man is writing a serialized algorithm epistle, and people treat it like scripture. Meanwhile, the rest of the world is using Python with libraries nobody understands.
So what's the alternative? Ugly code?
No. Functional code. Maintainable code. Code that your coworker can read at 2 a.m. after 3 energy drinks. Code that doesn't need a PhD in Knuthian aesthetics to understand. The pursuit of beauty in software is a vanity project. It's the programmer equivalent of a guy spending 6 months hand sharpening a knife he uses to open boxes.
I think we need a second opinion. Soundboard, what do you think? Is Knuth's quest for beautiful code a noble art form, or just expensive navel-gazing?
I believe that when you design a set of dishes for Williams-Sonoma, you're not just making a plate. You're making a statement about the soul of the meal. And if the plate costs $400 and takes 20 years to ship, well, that just means your guests are really, really hungry.
See? Even the dishware knows. It's performative. It's the algorithmic equivalent of a $4,000 set of chopsticks.
Okay, I'll give you this. The cult of personality around Knuth has insulated him from criticism. People don't say, hey, maybe Volume 4B could have been finished faster if you didn't spend 3 years on the font. They just accept it.
Right. And while we're all sitting here worshiping the altar of algorithmic purity, the real world is running on garbage code that works. Facebook runs on PHP. Twitter used to run on Ruby. You know what's beautiful? A website that loads in under 2 seconds. You know what's not beautiful? A 30-year treatise on sorting networks that nobody has finished reading.
So your argument is beauty is a bug.
Beauty is a bug. It's a feature request from the ego, not the customer. And Don Knuth, for all his genius, wrote the most successful vanity project in tech history. We just all agreed to call it a magnum opus.
So we're just going to say it. The book isn't finished. It's never going to be finished. Knuth is 87. He's still dribbling out Volume 4 in these little fascicles, like a rock band that keeps promising a concept album about the environment while touring on the hits from Woodstock.
And charging $200 for a t-shirt that says, I believe in Don? Look, I love the guy. I love that he wrote a check for $2.56 for finding a typo. I love that he paid people to find errors in his own book. That's a level of intellectual honesty we don't deserve. But at a certain point, the math doesn't math. He retired from teaching in 1993 to focus on these books. That was 31 years ago.
He's been retired from teaching longer than most of my coworkers have been alive, and he's still on Volume 4. There are 7 volumes planned. 7! At this rate, Volume 7 will be published posthumously by an AI trained on his grocery lists, and we will all pretend it's sacred.
But that's the thing. The tech industry needs it to be sacred. Because if it's not sacred, then what are we? We're just guys fixing date formatting bugs in JavaScript frameworks that will be obsolete next Tuesday. The Knuth delusion is the belief that one person can master an entire domain of knowledge. It's a beautiful lie.
It's a beautiful lie. And I'd argue it's the most dangerous one in tech, because it tells every young programmer that if they just try harder, they can be Don Knuth. Meanwhile, the field changes every 18 months. We're writing the Bible of a religion that doesn't exist yet, and won't exist when he finishes.
Wait. I want to ask someone who actually knows something. Soundboard, get me specifically the hologram of Kurt Cobain, who famously never finished an album he didn't immediately hate.
Smells like O of n log n. Just stop. The sorting is fine. Go outside.
Even Kurt Cobain thinks you should ship. But here's the real question. What happens when the Bible is perpetually incomplete? The field just moves on. We cite Volume 1 from 1968, and then we ignore the fact that the architecture of modern computing is built on hacks that would make Knuth weep.
Oh, he'd weep. He'd weep into his perfect text typesetting. But here's the cynical take. The unfinished nature is the point. It's a monument to the idea of mastery, not a product. It's a vanity project that we all funded with our respect and our shelf space.
And by funded, you mean we bought the book and put it on our desk to look smart, and then we Googled how to reverse a linked list anyway.
Exactly. We pretend to revere the cathedral while we live in the bazaar. And honestly, the bazaar works. It's messy, it's full of junk, but it's alive. The cathedral is a beautiful ruin that one old man is still trying to add a spire to.
So what's the takeaway? That we should stop waiting for Volume 5?
The takeaway is that the most honest thing Knuth ever did was write that check for $2.56, because it acknowledges the only real truth. Even the best book is full of errors, and the only way to fix it is to keep writing. And he will keep writing until he dies. And then we'll argue about who gets to write Volume 6.
And we will all pretend it's fine. We'll be right back after this word from our sponsors. And by sponsors, I mean the algorithmic gods of programmatic advertising, who have already served you an ad for a dating app for people who sort arrays in their free time. And we're back. You've been listening to a very special episode of Critical Path, brought to you by, well, nothing. Our Patreon is a ghost town, but the algorithm has spoken. So please enjoy this brief interlude where we pretend that the economic incentives of podcasting aren't actively hostile to long-form content.
You know, I was going to do a bit about how this episode is sponsored by Feynman's Lost Lectures, the NFT collection, but I can't even fake the enthusiasm.
That's because you're a real human. Real humans are bad at advertising. You know who's good? The guy in a polo shirt standing next to a whiteboard explaining why your Kubernetes cluster needs a paradigm shift.
God, I hate that guy. He went to Stanford. He calls his dad Pops. He has an opinion on Dune Part 2 that is just wrong.
Let's check in with our soundboard. Hey, soundboard celeb, what's the vibe? Is the third ad break hitting?
The future belongs to those who believe in the beauty of their dreams, and also in programmatic advertising for anti-dandruff shampoo.
See? Even Eleanor knows the gig is up. Speaking of ads that don't work, did you see the latest on Blue Sky? Some guy named Nick's Parade Guy is trying to make selective outrage happen.
Oh, the anal-.com post. 213 likes. A Knicks parade had more people than 7 states, and the media is silent because, what, they hate joy? They hate basketball? No, they hate that the parade was for a team that hasn't won anything since 1973. It's pure low-stakes crowd density, and the pundits can't handle it.
It's a perfect analog for the Knuth delusion, actually. A massive crowd of people celebrating the potential of a finished product. The promise of the ring, the promise of Volume 4B.
Boom. That's the segment. We just did the bit. We should bill the listener for that insight.
No, we're in the ad break. We're supposed to be selling something. Let's pivot to inshitification. Cory Doctorow's word is now in the dictionary, which means the dictionary is now inshitified.
Deep. Very deep. The dictionary is inshitified because it contains a word about inshitification. That's good postmodern irony. You get a year's supply of NFTs.
I hate you. Okay, real ad. The Streisand effect. The government tried to hide data. Now we all have it. Classic. But here's the thing. This has been happening for decades. Remember when Apple tried to take down that blog post about the iPhone prototype in 2010? Now it feels quaint. Now it's just Tuesday.
Yeah, and half the viral leaks are just astroturfing campaigns run by the same PR firms who were caught astroturfing before astroturfing was a word. It's turtles all the way down.
Speaking of turtles, MIT built their own operating system to study chips. Terminally academic. They probably named it OCaml OS or something. And you know what? I kind of respect it.
I respect it because it's a waste of time that will produce a single, beautiful, unreadable white paper. Unlike the tech bros on Hacker News arguing about zero-touch OAuth for MCP. Do you know what MCP is? I don't either. And I bet the guys arguing about it don't know. They're just trying to get the most abstract comment so they get a dopamine hit from a blue arrow.
Is this still the ad break?
It was, but the algorithm just gave us a 30-second extension for high engagement potential.
I hate it here. Let's go back to talking about Knuth. At least he's honest about his addiction.
Coming up, the bitter end, and the apology tour for the man who wrote the book we can't finish. But first, a word from our actual sponsors. The feeling of staring at a loading screen for 30 seconds.
Relatable.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And the absence of a zero-cost abstraction for memory safety.
So here we are, the end of the road. The place where we have to say what this book actually is. Not what the Amazon reviews say, not what the CS professors swear on a stack of punch cards, but what it is.
Lay it on me. I've got my Cynicism Palooza ticket punched.
It's not useless. That's the trap. If it were useless, we could just say, LOL Knuth, and move on. But it's not useless. It's a historical artifact. It's the written record of one man's 40-year psychotic break with the concept of shipping a product. And it's a genuinely useful reference for exactly one kind of person.
Which is?
The professional algorithm academic, the person who gets paid by the citation. The kind of person who, when presented with a problem, thinks, I wonder if there's an asymptotic bound I can prove, instead of, I wonder if this works on a Tuesday.
Ouch, but you're leaving out the wannabes, the self-taught coders who buy Volume 1 as a, see, I'm serious, flex for their bookshelf.
Right. It's a talisman, a totem, like those leather-bound encyclopedias people bought in the 90s to make their living room look smart. Nobody cracked them open. They just sat there, radiating the idea of knowledge.
Okay, fine. But I'm going to play generous host for a second. Is Vanity Project really the right frame? I mean, every great work is a vanity project if you're cynical enough. Dante's Comedy? Vanity Project. Moby Dick? Vanity Project. The Sistine Chapel? That was Pope Julius II's vanity project, but Michelangelo definitely had his own on the side.
Yeah, and the Sistine Chapel took 4 years. 4 years! Knuth has been on this longer than Michelangelo was alive. At a certain point, vanity becomes pathology.
Okay, pathology. That's a strong word. He's not hurting anyone.
No, he's just hurting the expectations of every CS undergrad for the last 50 years. Read TAOCP. It's the Bible. It will make you a better programmer. And then they open it and realize it's a math textbook from the 1960s that assumes you're a PDP-10 assembly wizard. That's not a guide. That's a hazing ritual.
So what's the real legacy? If TAOCP is the monument, what's the usable stuff he left behind?
Tech and literate programming. That's the stuff that actually changed how people work. Tech is buggy and weird, but it works. Literate programming is an idea that, even if it's not practiced literally, influenced how we think about documentation. Those are the gifts. TAOCP is the headstone.
So you're saying the book is unread?
Worse, it's revered. That's the scam. If it were just unread, nobody would care. But it's worshipped. People put it on a pedestal and act like they've absorbed its wisdom through some kind of spiritual osmosis. Meanwhile, they're writing JavaScript in 2024, and the chapter on mix is sitting there, completely useless, and nobody wants to admit it.
Soundboard celeb? Any thoughts? You've been quiet.
The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, and the absence of a zero-cost abstraction for memory safety.
See? Even the robot knows. The real question is, should we admire the ambition or stop pretending the book is what people say it is?
I think you can do both. You can say, that's an insane human achievement. I respect the obsession. And also say, this is not a practical guide for a working programmer. Those aren't contradictory.
They're not, but the tech industry has decided they are. You have to choose. Either it's a sacred text or it's obsolete. There's no middle ground allowed.
That's the enshittification of discourse, baby. Everything becomes a tribal signifier. You can't just read the book and go, huh, neat.
No, you either say Knuth was a god or you say Knuth was a hack, and neither is true. He's just a guy who wrote a very long, very thorough, very weird book. And maybe in 50 years, when nobody has touched a physical book in a decade, someone will find a copy in a landfill and go, what the hell is this? And that, my friends, is the only honest review you'll ever get.
So, the final score? TAOCP, 0. TEX, 1. Literate programming, a tie. The Streisand effect? Knuth's legacy is now being scrutinized because people keep insisting it's perfect.
Perfect summary. Let's get a drink. I'm done mythologizing for the day.
You were never mythologizing. You were deconstructing.
Semantics. The edit button is a lie.
We'll be back whenever Knuth finishes Volume 5. Don't hold your breath.